Kamala, hey, already? Really? Come on, like...
Do I have to figure out my whole future before lunch, or is there like... Maybe they're right. I spend too much time in fantasy land.
That is not you.
It's not really the brown girls from Jersey City who save the world. That's a fantasy too.
Know what you are?
I'm a superhero.
Welcome back, everyone. This will be my Miss Marvel trailer video. Marvel released the first official trailer. They've obviously changed a bunch about her character, so I'll explain what's going on with her powers and what her new backstory is going to be, how it's going to connect with the Marvel Phase 4 movies, and also with all the Young Avengers stuff that they're putting together in the background with these Marvel Disney Plus series and characters. If you're brand new to the channel, I will be doing videos for the episodes. Be sure to subscribe to get everything. They're going to be dropping episodes starting on June 8th, and a lot of you have actually correctly guessed that that will overlap with the Obi-Wan Kenobi episodes. So when we get closer to that and we actually learn more about what the actual Obi-Wan Kenobi schedule is going to be, then I'll talk more about how my videos are going to work. For the most part, I'll probably do Obi-Wan Kenobi videos, then I'll do my Miss Marvel videos. But most of you are probably familiar, at least a little bit, with Kamala Khan from the comics. So Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, relatively new character in the last 10 years or so. She's just the newest character to use the Miss Marvel name. But the comic book origin story, very different from the MCU backstory. So a lot of you asking lots of Inhumans questions, because in the comics, Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, is an Inhuman, but we don't have Inhumans in the MCU, at least yet. So that's part of the reason why they changed her origin story a little bit. Marvel also said that they specifically changed her powers to make them more similar to Captain Marvel and Monica Rambeau's Spectrum powers, or Photon, whichever name they go with for Monica Rambeau's superhero name when she comes back in the Marvels movie. But the Miss Marvel series is also meant to get Miss Marvel ready for Captain Marvel 2, The Marvels movie. In the title, The Marvels, as in plural Marvels, is a play on all their comic book names being based on Captain Marvel. Even though during the movie they'll probably use Monica Rambeau's Photon or Spectrum name, she is actually the original female version of Captain Marvel in the comics. She used the Captain Marvel name a long time before Carol Danvers did. There's actually a big Easter egg for that during the Doctor Strange 2 Multiverse of Madness trailer video. So you've all been wondering about this mystery character that this variant of Scarlet Witch is fighting. Like, this is not our main MCU Scarlet Witch who's fighting this character here. But she is fighting a Captain Marvel variant who is actually Maria Rambeau, Monica Rambeau's mother, from an alternate universe where she was the test pilot on the day that Captain Marvel got her powers. So Maria Rambeau got powers in that reality, and it's sort of a wink at the idea that Monica Rambeau is the original female Captain Marvel, even though in this case it's her mother. For those of you that are still hoping to see Inhumans show up in the MCU, Doctor Strange 2 would be the place for that to happen. There are a lot of rumors that we might see a variant to Black Bolt show up from the Inhumans TV show. I don't know if that's true, it's just a rumor, but that would be the place for it to happen. If we're doing so many variants of so many different versions of characters from the Fox Marvel movies, like we have Fantastic Four Fox Marvel characters that are supposed to show up, we also have a variant of Patrick Stewart's Professor X from those original Fox X-Men movies. If you don't know anything about Kamala Khan, she is basically a Pakistani-American girl from Jersey City, which is on the other side of New York City from Spider-Man, who's over in Queens. I believe she's actually Marvel's first on-screen Desi superhero that they've done in the MCU. The way they explain her backstory in the comics is that she's an Inhuman and this Terrigen bomb of Terrigen Mist goes off in New York City during this big comic book event. It activates her Inhuman powers, and she basically gains the power to embiggen herself. That's just the way they play it in the comics. What she's actually doing, though, the way her powers work, is that she actually pulls energy from her future self to make herself bigger, change her body size, and strengthen herself. You see them using this special bracelet with the energy powers to do versions of that. Like a couple of the takedowns that she has during this trailer where she puts both of her fists together and smashes them down, that is out of the comics. It's just that they're using the Green Lantern construct explainer for this with the energy. Her powers in the show will come from this special bracelet, and because they wanted to have similar powers to Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, I'm assuming that the bracelet she finds in her attic is either a Kree or a Skrull artifact from some point in ancient history, like it got left on Earth a long time ago and just wound up in her family, and for whatever reason they just forgot about it, or it only works for her for some reason. The whole idea with her character, though, is that she's basically like an Avengers fangirl who writes her own Avengers fan fiction. That's why they're using all the animation in the comic book thought bubbles, like she's imagining things while she's sitting in the middle of class or while she's having meetings with other administrators. All these drawings in her journal, it's all just stuff from the comics. Like before she became Captain Marvel, she writes all these stories about her having adventures with the Avengers. Captain Marvel is just her favorite character. So like in the middle of the trailer here where she's daydreaming, they have the comic book thought bubble that turns into the Marvel logo, but she's been doodling the Wasp and Ant-Man characters. Like you see her drawing a scene with Ant-Man. It seems like she's in the middle of history class. If you look at her textbook, it has the Egyptian artifacts and symbols on it. That's a bit of a sly wink at Moon Knight because Miss Marvel is the next Marvel series after Moon Knight, even though there's not really a huge connection between their characters. Most of the characters that she runs into in her high school here are just regular high school kids. Like, not a lot of them have superpowers. It's kind of like Spider-Man when he was at Midtown High during the early Spider-Man Homecoming trilogy. She's a couple years younger than Spider-Man. Like, Spider-Man literally is getting ready to graduate, although it's a bit of a tricky situation because of the way that everybody just forgot about him. That's why he has to get his GED, because he can't graduate from Midtown High, because they don't have any records of him ever attending. But in the next couple years, if they do a Spider-Man college trilogy, like starting in Spider-Man 4, Kamala Khan could theoretically attend the same college with Spider-Man eventually. She's only a couple years younger. So like if they get a season 2, she'll still be in high school when that happens. You notice the school kids make fun of her Avengers t-shirt, like she is an Avengers fangirl as I said, but it's the Wasp, Captain Marvel, and Valkyrie on the shirt. I'm assuming that this series takes place at some point close to when Hawkeye takes place, but not during the winter holiday. Like, you don't see it snowing anywhere in the footage here. We're now into like the year after Avengers Endgame, like things are slowly pushing forward in the timeline. You see the Captain Marvel Halloween costume that she winds up using later after she gets the bracelet that gives her the powers. In the original comic book origin story, she starts out like right after she gets her powers with the Terrigen Mist. She wears one of the older versions of Captain Marvel's costume with the sash, but eventually winds up making her own version of a Miss Marvel costume that looks like this one. This scene of her sitting on top of the streetlight looking out over the river at Manhattan is actually right out of the comic books. This is a comic book panel. I'm assuming this happens a little bit later in the run of the series because she's wearing the full comic book costume, like she's upgraded from the Halloween costume. The person that she spends all this time talking to in all these scenes, this boy here, is Bruno. He's also right out of the comics. He's sort of like her best friend. That's sort of like the friend zone trope where he eventually winds up becoming her boyfriend. It's a very common trope of teenage high school series where like two people are best friends and they don't realize that they're totally into each other till much later. All these scenes of her in the Captain Marvel costume is her just basically daydreaming herself being a version of Captain Marvel until she gets the actual powers and then tries to do it for real, causing all the disasters you would expect a teenager to cause when they get special powers like this. It was the same thing during Spider-Man Homecoming, like he gets the upgraded Stark Tech suit, winds up causing almost as much collateral damage as the villains cause. It would not be a Spider-Man or a Marvel story if Spider-Man did not cause a lot of the problems that he winds up having to solve. Just look at what happened during Spider-Man No Way Home with Doctor Strange's spell. But I don't know if Brie Larson herself is actually going to cameo during the series. My assumption right now is that they'll have a post-credit scene like Monica Rambeau's post-credit scene during WandaVision. So that was meant to be sort of a teaser for Captain Marvel 2 The Marvels, maybe also a little bit for Secret Invasion. Something similar will probably happen with Miss Marvel at the end of the Miss Marvel series that will help bring her to what's going on with Captain Marvel during the events of Captain Marvel 2. They give you a couple hints about what's going on with the villains. They don't really show you too much of the villains, but there are actually two different villain groups that they're supposed to use on the series. This group of Black Ops armored soldiers seem like they're connected to this organization called NICE, N-I-C-E. They're not from the comics, but they're basically like an MCU version of ICE, and if you're not familiar with that, that's actually Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement. It sounds like they're going to be a lot like the GRC organization from Falcon and Winter Soldier, but mostly for immigration inside the United States, like the Global Repatriation Committee trying to send all the people who moved from other countries after the snap back to where they came from. They were super antagonistic during the Falcon and Winter Soldier series, so NICE is kind of giving off that same vibe. The other supervillain group, I think, is going to be a little bit more of a legit supervillain group that you would expect. They're called Clandestine. They're pretty obscure, but they descend from an actual legit djinn inside the MCU. They become this family of really powerful magic users, and some of the family members get powers. This character here that she's fighting, using her powers with the red mask, is a version of Red Dagger from the comics. He might be connected to that clandestine organization. The way they're using him here, he might wind up being like a mid-boss for her to take down, and the actual main villain, final boss, will be someone from higher up in that organization. I know you're all asking about Young Avengers crossover because she does seem like core Young Avengers material just based on the vibe of the character here in the trailer. If they actually do wind up doing a Young Avengers project in the MCU, which it seems like they plan on doing long term eventually, it probably wouldn't happen till after they introduce all the mains, and that wouldn't be till after Ant-Man 3. That comes out after Captain Marvel 2 during next summer. Whatever Young Avengers Easter eggs we see during the Miss Marvel episodes, I'll just include those in my videos for them. If you spotted any Easter eggs in the trailer that I didn't talk about during the video, or you have any questions about Kamala Khan's Miss Marvel character in the MCU, just leave them in the comments. While you wait for everything, everyone click here for my brand new Spider-Man No Way Home deleted scenes video, and click here for my brand new Marvel Moon Knight trailer video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.